And it is my understanding that we have Steve on the line.
Yeah, we have Steve in the room.
Oh, wait. Yeah!
Hello.
Damn, look
Hello,
at that.
Steve.
Look at that office.
Dang.
Look at this.
I've had a few years to work on it.
That looks incredible. I love everything about that. Incredible. Hey, Steve, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. You guys are doing even better. Look at your total there. That's wild.
I know. Real quick, can we get Steve down in the room a little bit? Very loud.
I can get my mic on this side too.
No, you're good.
You're good. They can take care of it. Steve, could you do us a favor and introduce yourself and let people know who you are and how you came to be involved in this thing? And
Holy cow. So I was actually, I couldn't believe it. But the gray hair on my head confirmed it, that my first appearance seems to have been on Desert Bus 5 in 2011.
Really?
Some years ago. So I like to think of myself as a longtime friend and sponsor and ally of your cause. And I've been involved in interesting ways over the years. I saw in the chat that people were referencing High Dengler Vision. That was from Desert Bus 6 in 2012. And people forget, right? People forget that there was a time before giant companies doing streaming for you, right? Where you had to sit down and go, I'm going to have to put together a computer and bits and pieces here and there. I mean, you still have to do that part, but then how do I get it out to the world? And I remember, you guys were looking to go to high def, and it was going to be like a lot of work and expense and stuff like that. And, I've just been involved in little ways here and there over the years. COVID kind of threw us all a bit for a loop, but so it's kind of nice to be back. I think my last appearance was 2021. I don't know. I've done a lot of things in my life. I started a tech company, which did pretty well. I got involved in a lot of charities and things like that. I've done in 2017 for the 150th anniversary of Canadian Confederation, or Canada 150 as it was called. I did a circumnavigation of the world by helicopter with my father, which I think is on the topic list. So I'm the person that had the idea for DBloons back in 2012. So this was on the heels of High Dengler Vision. So M. Lunsford and I were working on an idea for a DBloon as early as 2014. But then we got into prep for the circumnavigation, and things kind of fell off the track. So it never really happened until, I'm just checking my notes here, 2018. So Desert Bus 12 in 2018 was the first appearance of the DBloon. So, some years later, because time is an illusion, as we all know. And,
wow, we've got a couple of them on screen there from many, many years ago.
I actually uploaded a Dropbox with a history of the DBloons over time, including like the first email, I think, between me and Graham about the DBloons and things like that. So there's actually in the Dropbox that I sent to engineering, there's a history. It's sort of a slides of DBloons over time, including the DBloon that was never made, the 2014 Desert Bus 8 DBloon. There you can see it right there.
Yeah.
So back in 2014, that's the DBloon that was never made. It never came into existence. So then the first one was in 2018, which you can see on the scrring there. Yeah. And then over time, it evolved. I don't know if we're going to get the slideshow as we go.
I think they're working on it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of things with my life. I've had a very good fortune, and I guess by that I mean luck and amazing people around me. So yeah, I saw a picture of myself up as William Cadmus Drake in Star Trek Continues. Yes, I was involved in that. I was one of the executive producers, and I was the security chief of the Enterprise. So there was a team of fans back some time ago that said, listen, the original series, Star Trek only ran for 3 of its 5 intended seasons, right? 5-year missions. So they actually, I guess I should say, put together the final 2 seasons in the original style and with uniforms and sets that were very true to life. And honestly, I think we did a pretty good job. It's out there. You can go to Star Trek, you just Google Star Trek Continues, and you'll get like the final 2 seasons of Star Trek. It's pretty well done. It's won all kinds of awards. But I must stress, it is a fan production. It has no official connection with Paramount or anything like that. It was very, very cool. We had some amazing people on it. I'm seeing a picture of me with James Stewart, the person who played Scotty. His son was our Scotty. So we had some really, really cool people. Oh gosh, yeah, there's me. There's the end of my run. You know what? It's not if you're wearing a red shirt and you go out in the final episode, I think that's a win, right? If you make it to the final episode, I call that a win.
Good run for
Yeah,
a
it was really well done. Our Sulu was Grant Imahara, who was a very good friend, and it was really tough to lose.
And then I know, along with Star Trek, you've also done a few other sort of movie, TV projects. I know that you had some fun with the Veronica Mars gang.
I was that mystery backer in the Veronica Mars project. I ended up in the movie.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can remember my line. Let's get weird. So,
Nailed it.
I've also actually, and that clip comes a microsecond before James Franco trying to put on skinny jeans. So they actually made a college humor skit about the guest spot on. This is such a funny story. They made a college humor skit with Kristen Bell and some of the other actors about who the mystery guest was going to be. And they wanted me for it, but it was shot in the US and it's union. So I couldn't participate in the skit. I'm not union. I'm not a professional actor. So I couldn't participate in the skit because it was a union project. And they had to get me into the project on a very weird technicality. So I shot it in Canada, out of the country, and it was technically under contract or something like that. They went through, because they're a big company, you can't just do things willy-nilly. So they got me in on a special way into the movie, and I couldn't. But it was cool. I was on the set. I met all the people. It was awesome. I've done a fair number of cool. As I said, I've been very, very fortunate to do a fair number of things, cool things in my life. Some of the proudest stuff that I've done has been the video games that I've helped get made. Defense Grid 2, whole bunch of stuff with Double Fine. I actually wouldn't mind talking about some of that later on, if that's all right with you.
I mean, you can talk about it right now if you'd like.
Yeah. So, I uploaded a giant bucket of photos of the circumnavigation that I did. I don't think it's worth going through that giant bucket of photos. I've given a presentation about it, I want to say somewhere between 50 and 100 times, from school kids to senior staff at government institutions all over the world. It was a really cool moment in time. So my father and I, for Canada 150, wanted to commit there. I'm seeing something in the chat there. So we got a Guinness World Record for it and an FAI Exceptional Air Force Performance Certificate, which if you're in the aviation world is a big deal. So the FAI certificate was the record of first Canadian helicopter circumnavigation of the world, period. And the Guinness World Record, so let me back up a bit. To commemorate the 150th anniversary of Canadian Confederation, my father and I wanted to do something really cool. So I've flown fixed wing aircraft for fun for a number of years. There's the poster. Great poster. That's like most of our best shots. And a lot of those individual shots are also in the chat. If you can pull up there's a close-up of the globe and the stops that we went to. It's number 3 or number 4 in the...
Looks like we got it right there.
Yeah, we got it.
So there's one more beyond that, but yeah, this is a good one for now. So it was a Bell 429, 100% Canadian made. We flew from July 1st to August 17th, 2017, 150th anniversary of Canadian Confederation. It took like a year and a half of planning, and then we flew for 48 days, 30 of which were flying days, and 18 of which were looking up, waiting for the weather to change. It was almost 37,000 kilometers, and we did 92 stops in 14 countries. And you can see on the little map, there's all zigzags through Canada. That's because we had, there it is. There's where we stopped and places we visited all around the world. And we wanted during Canada 150 to stop in as many Canadian communities as we could. So we went to we tried to get to every provincial and territorial capital in Canada. We didn't make it to Victoria, which was a big bummer because some of you, because I wanted to, first of all, land in Victoria and say hi to you guys. We were going to do some sort of tie-in, as I recall.
Yeah.
And some of you people that are old timers like me, might remember the Night Wolves saga. And we were going to stop and say hello to the Night Wolves, if you remember that. That's its own thing. You can look it up on the wiki or whatever you want to do. Yeah, okay, so this is my dad, and stop on that photo. That's really good. This is my dad and myself on the date of departure. So our mascot was a stuffed goose named Wawa, which is the Anishinaabe word for goose. And I collected pins as I went around the world. And by the time I got back, perhaps you can see the extreme number of pins that we had on Wawa's ribbons. We had to lengthen the ribbons. You can see they're I don't know if that's focusing. I'll move back a bit in the
There you go. That's good.
We have like so many pins from every place we stopped. It was absolutely phenomenal. And everywhere we went, you were treated as heroes, right? Just, it was so cool. So the point was to celebrate Canadian engineering and innovation as we flew around the world. And we had some tie-ins with the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers, and we were raising money for Southlake. Yeah, that's the helicopter, the Bell 429, made 100%, designed and manufactured in Mirabel in Quebec. We had a number of notable people on for parts of the flight. We had, so that's, day one is we're first leg as we're going from Bolton to Ottawa, which was our first stop. So on the trip, we had some really cool people. We had Dave Williams, the astronaut, not for every leg, but for some of them. We had Bronwyn Evans. As I said, we were raising money for Southlake, which is a big cancer treatment center here in the Toronto area, and also for True Patriot Love, which is a veterans charity. It supports veterans and their families. So when veterans are deployed overseas and things like that, it can be very stressful. And anyway, that's formation flying on the south coast of Iceland. Anything you pull up, I can tell you what it is in 2 seconds. Yeah, it was wild. A third of the trip. So that was 11,000 kilometers in 11 days was through Russia. So no one will be doing that again soon. And it was quite an interesting journey. But it was, so at the end, we applied to the Guinness World Records thinking we must have broken some record, right? And I didn't realize the extent to which the Guinness World Records sort of turns it around and says, what record do you think you broke? I'm like, oh, geez, okay. Yeah. I guess that makes sense, and you want me to suggest. So they open up their access to their database, and in the database, we determined that pretty likely that we were the first father and son team to ever circumnavigate the world by any kind of aircraft, period.
Oh, wow.
So we submitted all the stuff to Guinness. So it's interesting. Guinness, if you're doing like an event like archery or something like that, they'll send out official observers or you'll nominate an official observer. But if you're doing a circumnavigation, like there were lots of times we had the weight of that aircraft down to the ground, right? We had seats removed, and we were to get the endurance we needed, especially over the oceans. We really had to get deep into the math to make sure we had the fuel to get across. So we can't take an observer. So we had 2 independent satellite trackers on it, fuel receipts from every single stop. We had photos, all with EXIF info in them, signed witness statements from all types of people all around the world. Like, it was quite an undertaking. That is Hospital Hill in Iqaluit, overlooking Iqaluit. There are no trees in the photo because it's north of the tree line. So in the end, and just this year, like, it was first we had to get the FAI to sign off on it because Guinness says, listen, if there's an official governing body for your sport, we defer to them. Makes sense. So we had to go to FAI first, which was difficult and complicated, just took a long time. So once we had that in hand, we went to Guinness, and that took some time too. So just this year, I think you can see it in the background there, we got the Guinness World Record. So here we are, 2 Guinness World Record holders speaking to. Hello, we won't use the secret language that comes in the brochure.
Yeah, we'll get in trouble. That's the first rule of Guinness.
That's right.
Don't talk about Guinness.
Don't talk about Guinness. So that was really cool. It was really a bit of a bummer that we didn't make it to Victoria, but this is an interesting story. So this is okay. On Baffin Island, in the northern part of Canada, there is something that if it were 2,000 kilometers further south would be a major tourist attraction on par with the Grand Canyon. It's called the Akshayuk Pass. And this is us flying through the Akshayuk Pass. The sides of those mountains are 1 mile high, straight up. Wow. 1 mile high. These are the deepest vertical heights on the entire planet Earth. And in fact, if you've ever seen a movie where James Bond tumbles off a mountain and they're fighting in midair, it was almost certainly shot in the Akshayuk Pass. They go up there and do jumping and stuff like that. It's very cool. So, what more is there to say? Oh, yes. We tried to make it to Victoria. We couldn't make it because of the wildfires that year. The wildfires were insane.
I remember that.
The last thing you want to do as a civilian helicopter is be flying through an active firefighting zone, right? Insane. So We did make it into a tiny little place called Fort St. John, which was in the northeastern part of British Columbia. And the mayor, Laurie Ackerman, came out. And by the way, if you don't know this, Fort St. John is the Dijon mustard capital of North America. 80% of the Dijon mustard sold in North America is grown around Fort St. John. So there you go. You learned something today. And she said, okay, for the purposes of this trip, today, I, Laurie Ackerman, the mayor of Fort St. John, declare Fort St. John to be the honorary capital of British Columbia. You can say, and I'm like, I'm not sure you can do that, but perfect. I'll take it. So yeah. Depending on who you ask, we visited every provincial and territorial capital in Canada, did a lot of zigzagging inside of Canada. And the crazy part is the first thing we did was fly east to the coast of Labrador, up the coast of Labrador and through the Canadian Arctic. And then for the rest of the trip, we're looking at the window and going, okay, this spectacular scenery is amazing. But it's really not as cool as the Canadian Arctic, right? Like it's like you start with the absolute best scenery, the absolute like top scenery you're ever going to see, and then from there on, it's like, yeah, it's no Canadian Arctic, it's okay. Anyway, I don't know how much time you want to give this, but it was just a cool little thing. I shouldn't say little; it was a massive undertaking, and we did raise a significant chunk of money both for South Lake and for True Patriot Love. It's really hard to know the numbers because we had corporates donating through us, and we had a foundation at the time, but individuals needed to donate directly to the charity. So it's really, really difficult to determine exactly how much money we raised, but it was substantial. So that was a really cool moment. And to have the Guinness World Record and like first, right? Longest running first. Yeah. That's a Guinness record that doesn't go away. Yeah. No one can beat first. The first time you did something, longest running, internet, what's the wording on the certificate? Longest running?
I don't actually know. I'd have to look.
Longest running internet security drive, right?
Yeah,
like that.
Something like that.
You can't just have to time machine. You can't beat that record.
Yeah, exactly. I guess a couple. I'm just curious about the helicopter now, like the actual helicopter. What's the longest that thing can stay in the air?
Great question. Okay, so this is the Bell 429. It's the one that the Canadian Coast Guard is switching to because it has two engines. So, that's a great shot. That's the St. Louis River in Labrador. So what it means is there's two shaft turbines inside the cowling at the top, and the helicopter can fly without either one of them. I mean, there's still a main transmission, and there's lots of single points of failure in any aircraft, especially a helicopter. But the main thing you're worried about is the stuff that's turning at thousands of rotations per minute, right? So talking about the helicopter, this is really interesting. So we worked with the manufacturer because this was great for the manufacturer, for us to fly their helicopter around the world, show how stable a platform it is. So we worked with them and we put in an auxiliary fuel tank in addition to an inflatable, meaning it's that, it's kind of that rubberized camping nylon, it's almost impossible to cut. It's a special third tank. So there's the main tank, the aux tank, which are inside the helicopter. And then we put this inflatable tank. Our longest run was Kulusuk, Greenland, to Reykjavik, Iceland. That picture is the shores of Lake Baikal in Russia. And that was, I want to say 702 kilometers, something like that, off the top of my head. That was the absolute longest leg that we did. And of course, all over super cold waters. Even in summer, there's ice floating around in those waters, right? So it was funny because in the end, that was the least stressful part of the trip. We just waited till we had tailwinds, the weather was fine, and we just zipped across, no problem. And we like to fly 2-hour legs at 140 knots. We could get it up to between 2.5 hours to 3 hours using, like a Bugs Bunny cartoon, throwing all the seats and everything out the side of the aircraft. Yeah. We'd literally unbolt some of the seats and ship them ahead and get the aircraft down to the lightest possible weight and replace it with fuel. So that was the longest one we did. I also fly fixed wing, and I've flown fixed wing a much longer time. I have a plane with a partner in the Toronto area, a little guy. I think it's on my desk behind me. I don't know if you can see it over there. Anyway, that for contrast, that thing flies at the same speed as a helicopter and can fly for 5 hours. So helicopters are great for what they're good at, right? Which is rescuing people, landing in strange places, right? Coast Guard, perfect use case. Hovering, lowering a winch, rescuing a person, they're wonderful for that. Cool. They're not the best for distance, though.
Right.
So,
I mean, you've alluded to the fact that you stripped as much out of this thing as possible to make room for weight and stuff. was there one creature comfort that you took aboard the helicopter that, non-essential, but you wanted to have it there with you?
It's really interesting. The biggest creature comfort I took with me was music, right? And it's just a giant playlist on your. I actually solicited from friends and family, like you guys have been doing, by the way. What's your favorite album? Oh, by the way, if I can chime in, I don't think anyone's nominated a musical yet.
Okay.
South Pacific. Soundtrack to South Pacific. Any production.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Is for my money. My go-to, I can go back to that. I can listen to it a million zillion times, and always seeing the stage productions. I've seen probably a dozen stage productions of South Pacific. It's just a phenomenal musical. Okay, so music, right? That was my go-to. We were really light on clothes. I mean, I had this flight suit and some underwear and t-shirts, and that was pretty much it, right? And my music. So my music was the thing that got me through, and doesn't weigh anything, so that was a bonus.
That's awesome. What was the support like? Like, did you have people flying along with you? I mean, obviously, I'm seeing all these gorgeous. Really,
another really good question. It's funny. I've as I said, I've probably given a presentation on this an hour to 2 hours. Probably, I guess, if I had to guess, 70 times, and only people who've organized giant undertakings, like say Desert Bus, will ask that question. Like, okay, what are the off-screen people doing in this? So, really good question.
I love to know that stuff. I love it.
Really insightful question. So there's two answers to that. Answer number one is Bell Helicopter gave us a lot of indirect support. So they had organized maintenance stops at various, like in Whitehorse and in Prague. We actually had the Bell engineers come out and give us a go over the helicopter, because every 50 hours of airtime, you need to do an inspection of the helicopter. So that was Prague and Whitehorse. We flew west to east. By the way, I'd never do that again. Fly east to west. If, let's say we fly a time zone a day, which, it was pretty much what was happening. Every time you wake up and fly, you lose an hour in your day. And it's, you know what I'm saying? And so your sleep is getting compounded day after day, worse and worse and worse, to the point where when we crossed back in from Russia to Alaska, we just slept an entire day. We just slept in our beds for 24 hours. Which was great because we crossed the date line. So that, you know what I mean? It sort of made up for it.
Yeah.
To go back to your question, Bell provided us with a lot of soft support, meaning making their engineers available and when necessary. But on the planning and execution side, a lot of it was my wife, Bruna. I actually made up a little trophy for her at the end. Nice. Just out of appreciation. You can see it up there in the thing. But yeah, she was phenomenal. And, there are some, like, especially in the Arctic, we had satellite communications and things like that pretty much all the time, but there are dead zones for satellite comms in the Arctic. So a great example, for example, is from Kulusuk to Reykjavik, the single longest leg we did over icy water, happens to also be a satellite dead zone. So here's my wife, right? Totally different time zone than me. We go out of satellite comms range. It's just like, let's hope he makes it to Reykjavik. Yeah. And then we get to Reykjavik, back in satellite. We're good, all's good. Okay, but I put her through a lot. I think perhaps I only realized how much in retrospect. I feel a lot guilty about that. She's an amazing person though, and this trip simply would not have been possible without her.
Awesome. All right, final question before we can move on to maybe some video game stuff.
Please.
What happened to the helicopter? Where's the helicopter?
Oh, really good question. So my dad at the time, so it was his. So he aged out of it. So when you get to be 80, your aircraft insurance company basically says, we're not insuring you to fly anymore. They'll sometimes say, listen, if you fly with a pilot in the other seat. So it's now in the United States. And it actually has like little plaques and secret Easter eggs in there that we had. This helicopter won a Guinness World Record, was part of a Guinness World Record team. There's like a little brass plaque in the cargo bay and a few other little Easter eggs inside the helicopter. But it is basically, it looks exactly the same as it did. Well, I shouldn't say that. If you see the photos of the helicopter, it has all sorts of vinyl decals on the side. That was a specific livery that we made up for the Circumnavigation. Those came off at the end, but it's a really nice paint job. Anyway, that's now in in Arizona. And what's wild is a lot of people don't know how much Canadians are leaders in engineering and specifically aerospace engineering. And we have a long history of being leaders. So there's so many stories from this, and if I get bogged down, I'm going to, it would take, like I said, my presentation is usually 2 hours, and I still feel like I've only scratched the surface. But we had with us as one of our special guests for the first couple of days, Honorary Colonel Gerald Haddon, who's the grandson of J.D. McCurdy. J.D. McCurdy was the person who flew the first powered flight in Canada, and in fact, the entire British Empire. And that was done in Baddock Bay. And that's wild because, believe it or not, due to some weird historical coincidence, he went to the same high school that I did. Wow. So J.D. McCurdy, the first pilot in Canada, went to the same high school as I did. So I think somewhere in the box, there's a photo of me and his grandson flying our high school flag over the National Historic Site in Baddock Bay, Nova Scotia, where the first flight occurred. It was just, the whole thing was filled with very weird moments like that. Just like, oh, I'm making history. Okay, all right, fair enough. It was just wild.
Awesome. All right, let's shift over to some video games. What do you want to talk about?
Some of you may remember that back in, I want to say 2021, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So for the tech people, this is the Whisker Squadron Dropbox. So Aaron Sanfilippo of Flipfly was making a game called Whisker Squadron. They've made some great games in the past, Race the Sun, stuff like that. So I sponsored, they were doing a Kickstarter, and I took one of the top spots and sponsored a desert bus themed character. And 2 years ago on the stream, on my appearance, the desert bus community selected the appearance of the character. So you can have a look. Think Star Fox meets Vampire Survivors times Synthwave. There you go. Synthwave the style, not necessarily the music, although not necessarily not the music. So it's wild. It's a fabulous game, super high energy, super cool. So the game and the protagonists of the game are a group of pilots who are all cats. So we, the Desert Bus community, 2 years ago, came up with a secret unlockable character and we designed called DB. And here's the reveal. This is DB. DB, the Desert Bus character in Whisker Squadron Survivor. And you can access this, if you own this fine title, all you have to do is activate the console with the tilde key and type in the magic word of magic words, which is, of course, Desert Bus, all one word. And you will now have access to DB. And I think there's a couple of screens of DB in-game flying along. So the base artwork for this was done by Sam GC. That's the moniker he prefers. That's why I always use that. There's DB at the bottom, like saying some cool stuff, like "Don't worry, we got this" or something like that. And it was animated by a really cool Swedish animator called Christopher Lofberg. So the two of them animated that artwork that we as the community selected. And there's DB in the game. There's an animated GIF in there or GIF, depending on if you're right. And I don't know if tech can pull it up. It's not a big deal if they can't. So there it is. If you're a fan of action shooters with kind of a roguelike progression and the 80s, hyper 80s style, and you want to play a Desert Bus themed character in the game, you just fire up the console with the tilde key and type Desert Bus. And listen, there's still early access, I believe. I'm just going to check my notes here for a second, if you don't mind. I want to make sure I don't get anything wrong. Yeah, they launched on Steam early access in August, and they really want community feedback. So if you get into the community, they're really looking for that community feedback. They're doing monthly content updates, it's just a blast to play. And DB's in there today, right now. If you have that game in your Steam library, you can play DB right now if you want. So that's my first little DB video game request tie-in.
Yep.
Got
send myself a message about that for later.
Sorry, what was that, Steve?
I've got three more.
Yeah, go. You're good.
All right, so let's go to Tyrion Cuthbert. So this is this is the least direct Desert Bus tie-in of all the games I want to talk about. But if any of you there's a visual novel courtroom drama called a series of games called Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, which I and my kids fell in love with. So this is Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, but Dungeons and Dragons. So it's set in set in a richly detailed fantasy world. And there's all the courtroom drama. You can see it on screen that you've come to know and love from Phoenix Wright, but it's got a whole sort of fantasy angle as well. So we can do If you go to the next slide, there's like full interruptions and objections. Objection. Yeah, we've got the whole. There's no pointy objection. I'm a little bit disappointed for that. It's so there. Fantasy world, really cool. Lots of amazing characters and a lot of very, very well-written plot. Just love the game. Lots of twists and turns, maybe a little romance, as is very common in the visual novel style. And there's also a certain character in the game called Stephanic Dracogen. Not sure who that could be, but I found him to be an interesting, kind of an interesting person. So just for clarity, I don't get anything out of promoting these games. I don't own any shares or there's no monetary reward or anything. These are just games that I really fell in love with and I really wanted to back and help along, and came out absolutely fabulously. So truly, if you love that kind of visual novel, courtroom drama thing, if you loved Ace Attorney or any of the Ace Attorney games, Tyrion Cuthbert, Attorney of the Arcane, it's so awesome. It's made by a Canadian guy, Stephen Charles of Diamond Henge. Just a fabulous game. So there's my recommendation, and you might encounter my character there. So the next game I wouldn't mind talking about is by a Desert Bus alumna, Kels.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there it is, Calico. So she's been working on this game for a while, and it is phenomenal. So think Animal Crossing meets Goat Simulator. But also it's got like a cat cafe and befriending. It's like a non-violent life simulator. It's really, really cool. There's a million cool activities you can do in here. There's an animated GIF of I don't know if you can do animated GIFs on the stream, but there's one in there that's hilarious. Oh, see, bottom left. Have you ever wanted to travel by walking on a rolling cat? You can do that in this game. That's one of the perks. Let's see, I think she's been doing it. Let me check my notes. I don't want to make a mistake. 3 years now. She's launching it on PlayStation very soon, and when she does, it's going to be on all major consoles. Oh, look, it's a friendly Dracogen in the game. Who could have predicted there would be a friendly Dracogen wizard with his own magical tower in the game, who is a friendly person you can visit at any time. Please do come and visit me in the game. I'm a friendly person, and I'm
starting to not believe you by saying how many times you're saying friendly, but
Yeah. The more you say it, the less true it
it's a
sounds.
trick.
That's right. Not suspicious at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
All right, Steve, what's the last game you got here?
So this one's very near and dear to my heart. And I haven't talked about it publicly with the exception of a little very friendly, I keep saying that word, a small allied tribe last night, sort of as a pre-test for talking about it today. So if we go into, if I can get the tech people to bring up the first pencil drawing screenshot. So
Oh, wow.
many years ago, when I was a teenager, I came up with a little character called Cosmic Crowbar. You can see at the bottom left, you can see the bottom of the left one. It's 1984, and I used to draw cartoons of him all the time. So about 10 years ago, I was working with Tim Schafer. I was helping him finance games and shift from the studio model to kind of self-publishing and stuff like that. And we're still very good friends to this day. I think we did 6 games or 7, depending on how you count it. And one of them was, and if you go to the next slide, called Middle Manager of Justice, which was Double Fine's first ever mobile game. And it was a lot of fun. The team loved my Cosmic Crowbar character so much that he became a playable character in the game. Now, in the game, they kind of gave him a suit, like a muscle suit. That was the style of the game. And so to make him fit in, he doesn't really have a suit, just a crowbar, right? So if you go to the next slide, thank you for bearing with me on the slides. It was really cool. He had some great puns. I don't mean to pry, but are you committing a crime? It was a very, very cool game. So, and by the way, I'm just going to take a little tangent here. The lead programmer on this was Ki Chi, who, by the way, was the lead programmer on what title that just launched recently to great acclaim? Psychonauts 2. So I have a favor to ask if the person is still watching, or if you can put me in touch with them. I don't have it off, and there were some really cool embroidered patches.
I got you.
I wonder if I could talk to the person about those patches to maybe get some for Ki Chi, the lead maybe get an extra batch for the lead programmer of Middle Manager of Justice and Psychonauts 2. So
totally.
if that's something that person is open to, I would love to talk to them about that. Key and I are great friends to this day, and this was one of Key's first major sort of owned projects, and so we both have amazing memories of this project. It was great. Okay, so it was a great game. I had so much fun playing this game. You got to fight like giant monsters. You got to fight, little bad guys. It was just a really cool leveling up procedure, and they throw a party in the office. Like Middle Manager of Justice is kind of like the daily drudgery of running a team of superheroes. It was such a great game. All right, so that was about 11 years ago, 2012. That game was out. That came out. I don't think it's available anymore. Someone can correct me, but I don't think it's available anymore. It's really hard, especially with mobile games, to maintain it. As devices change and things change, it's really, really, really hard to keep that game to date. It's a really big hurdle. So I think at a certain point, the game just sort of ran its course, and they said, okay, we got to wind it down. But it will live on forever in my heart. So what's happening now? So I've been working for some time on a video game and sister animated series based on this character of mine and a group of related characters that I created back in the 80s. And we're taking it a really interesting way. Really not a fan of many of the ways people are developing and marketing video games. And so we started sort of from an ethical perspective where we said, okay, what are the core ethics that we want in the game? So we want this game to be 100% human made. Like it's like everything that was done here was done by actual human beings getting paid. People talk about AI all the time. I always call it automated imitation as opposed to AI. By the way, when AI shows up and is truly sentient, I'll be the first person in line saying these people should have full citizenship. If you're an actual AI, welcome to the party of consciousness. You're one of us, right? But if you're just some large data model stealing other people's art and cranking out imitations, you're not. That's not right. So we're not doing in-game currencies. We're not doing pay to win. My youngest son, pointed out one really important exception. You will have to buy the game. So technically, you would have to pay to buy the game.
You would have to pay to it. Yeah,
that is like, maybe I need like a little asterisk by no pay to win. We're not doing any gambling. We're not doing any loot boxes, and we're not doing any dark patterns. And dark patterns is really interesting if you want to Google that. It's ways that big studios engineer your engagement with the game to the point of addiction that you feel you have to always be re-engaging with the game on the game's terms instead of on your terms. Really not a fan of any of this stuff. So our sort of ground floor welcome to the party sign was, here's what we're doing, 100% human made, and here's what we're not doing, any of this stuff. So, and I can share with you some of now I do want to stress and manage expectations. This is not a finished game. I don't have a release date for it. We're on the journey, not announcing a game. I do have a little Discord up, which I'll talk about at the end. If you want to show up, we'll tease art and stuff like that. But I'm just talking about something that's a passion project of mine and has been for many years. So our lead artist is Sam GC, who also is the person I've been working with on the coins for the last few years. So here's some early art concepts. Cosmic Crowbar is a metallic alien who comes from another planet as a puddle in great distress and merges with an earthly crowbar to stabilize his situation. He lands in mysterious circumstances in a scrapyard. So there's a friendly, I'm using that word again, family in the scrapyard. Here's some of the lead characters. The Raston family runs the scrapyard. It's called Raston Salvage. And Cosmic Crowbar meets a team of very support. Here he is. Here's Cosmic Crowbar, freshly arrived on the planet Earth as a very metallic liquid puddle alien in great distress. And there's that crowbar that will save his life. The scrapyard's a place full of mystery that you can explore, but it's also a very warm and place of friends and family that welcome him. And I really wanted to make a non-violent, but still, lots of peril, like cartoon peril. So Cosmic Crowbar, it's a very welcoming, warm environment. It's meant to be like 12 to 17. The art's really shaping up. Here's some of the stuff that's happening in the last 6 months. Some of the concept art, some of the other stuff. And I don't know what I have left to show here. We've got some cool posters and screen art that I think are on the next couple of slides. But It's just been a labor of love for me, something I've been meaning to do for a very long time. Yes, this is an homage to the Silver Age of comics, the comic book. So if you want to join the Discord, the link is at the bottom there. You can go to drakeagent.com/cc. There'll be a little page there with a link to the Discord. I must stress, I'm not promising you anything for doing that, and it's probably still going to be quite a long haul before there's any sort of video game and sister animated series launched to the world. But if you want to tag along, you're welcome to do it, and we'd love to have you. So, by the way, thank you so much for letting me talk about all of these projects, especially the last one. It's very much. I'm really sad that our little surprise didn't work out this year. Hopefully, for next year, we can.
We'll figure it out.
Have it. I do want, if she's listening, Cathy Jones, who has done a number of really amazing lots over the years, like the N7 jacket, leather jacket, which some of you may remember. She was the one who really put a lot of work into finalizing those surprises, and it just didn't work out this year.
Yep.
She was a hero who went above and beyond, so I have to thank her for doing that, even though we couldn't get it across the finish line this year.
All right.
Due to my fault. That is not her fault. My fault.
What is the name of her company, Steve?
Steve, what's the name of her company?
Well, right now it's God Save the Queen Fashions, but I believe she's changing it to Cathy Jones Fashions. So if you Google GSTQ, Cathy Jones, CATHYJONES, in Atlanta, she is a longtime collaborator of Harrison Cricks, who's been on the show a number of times. You'll remember Harrison and Cathy. They used to come to me to the Child's Play dinners all the time when I used to do that, when I had time to do that. Maybe something.
So she was the one that made the N7 jacket from previous years, and people might have seen floating around from Monster Hunter the giant cat chef suit. That was her studio as well.
Cool.
So yeah, definitely check that out.
Awesome. All right. Before we say goodbye, Steve, this seems like a perfect time to mention the DBloon, which people can buy over at store.desertbus.org. There it is on screen, Desert Bus 17s or Desert Bus 2023 DBloon this year. Looking absolutely fantastic. And again, so this would be the 6th one of these we've done then?
It's a really good question.
7. We said it was 2018 was the first?
There wasn't one for 2014. It almost happened, but didn't. So I'm just going to my DBloon
So
directory.
this would be 6, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is 6th or 7th. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm looking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th.
Yeah.
The one for Desert Bus 8 was never made. So this is the 6th actual extant doubloon. Now, people understand the difference between the silver and the gold doubloons?
Yes.
I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the silver doubloon is the one that you can buy over at store.desertbus.org. The gold one is the one that you will get if you win a prize during Desert Bus.
And please let me convey my gratefulness as well. I mean, this was just a silly idea I had many years ago, and it really became sort of part of the tradition. And, you know, as somebody who's been involved with this for a very long time, it's really meaningful to me every time you invite me to continue to participate. And especially as a long timer, you know, it's really cool to see some of the old faces again, and you know, it evokes some of the old memories again. So thank you very much for letting me, number one, contribute as a guest, but number two, letting me contribute, you know, in terms of the doubloons. I'm very honored to be able to continue to do that. And thank you as well for letting me talk about a whole bunch of stuff that probably was only interesting to me.
Absolutely not. It is always an absolute pleasure to have you, Steve. Thank you for the doubloon. Thank you for all the support over the last, 1,000 years, I think it is now. And I'm looking forward to the next 1,000. So thanks so much for hanging out, and hopefully we'll see you again very soon.
Yeah.
Good luck with the run, guys.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Love you.
Whoa, thanks, Steve.
Yeah, Steve.
Yay!
That was awesome.
All right.
He's a great guy.
He is great. Steve is fantastic. Also, I genuinely love his office. It's so cool.
I look